Hi everyone, this is Christina Barr and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I am your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about the lying, no good media pretty much the entire time. That is what we are going to be talking about. Even my meme for the day is related around that topic. There's just a couple of key interviews that I wanted that were just kind of like in my feed that I wanted to concentrate on and talk about. And it's really insane. And people ask me why I do what I do with Black Tea News and like what's the end game. The end game is to have just somebody try to break through the barrier of their nonsense so people can be informed and make better decisions, that they can hear an opinion that is going to be more rational than the hyper emotionalized racial nonsense they're trying to inject in the world. Not that I only focus on race and stuff, but it is a topic that comes up a lot. But I think my perspective is important. I think everyone's perspective is important. But we just don't have enough people trying to think critically and objectively on the issues. And for example, I've talked about the border crisis and how there were photos coming through in like when Trump was president, like 2018 and stuff, and people were like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. Maybe it was 2017, 2018. But then they found out that those photos predated Trump's election, and that was actually from the Obama period. And they had pictures. Time magazine put out a cover, and there's a little girl screaming, and Trump's just looking down at her. It turns out that child was never separated from her mother. And then it turned out the second debate night he had with Joe Biden, there's people who didn't know what a coyote was because Trump said some of these kids are still separated because they didn't come with their parents. They didn't come with their families. They came with coyotes. You know, they were like smuggled in, and people were like, coyotes? What do you mean coyotes? How's a whole coyote going to take a whole child across the border? And there were people who were verified checkmark people. There were state legislators who said crazy stuff like that and just too many people who, and it's fine if you don't know what a coyote is, okay? There's people on the right who don't know that. It's not like common information, but if you're going to be so invested in a particular topic, you could just know some things about it. So there's so many people, even like evangelicals for Biden, who voted strictly on like the border issue because they thought Trump's policies were inhumane, when really the media really pushed a particular narrative to get people emotional. And now we have fools running the border situation, and it is the biggest crisis right now. Is it still? I guess it still would say is like the top crisis, because if you don't have borders, you really don't have a nation. And Afghanistan gave it a run for its money. Don't get me wrong, but the border crisis is still bad. So anyway, whether it's that or whether it's some of these racial justice issues that people talk about, which I'm going to jump into because I got a critical race theory thing to talk about today. People really try to use people's emotions and manipulate people, especially as if they're protecting the other, like they're protecting the immigrants, they're protecting Black people and so on. Well, no, you're just doing a lot of really stupid things that are going to destroy the country. And that is the end game of a lot of these people. And I keep hearing people say now on the right that we're really getting to a point where it's not even like Republican versus Democrat. It is, do you want to preserve America, or are you going to let the Marxists come in? That's pretty much where we're like coming at. So I want to be someone who can maybe help push back against that. Inform you guys with what's going on politically and culturally, because the culture stuff is so important today too. It all bleeds together. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it really does all bleed together. So I want to inform you guys so you guys can talk to other people. I want to empower you. I want to inspire you. And I want you to be brave enough to go ahead and talk to other people who are outside of the bubble. And I want to reach those people too. So with that being said, please consider supporting blacktnews.com. You can go to blacktnews.com/donate and consider leaving a donation if you like what I do here. It's important that we do expand and that we do grow here. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for allowing me to use their studio. Again, they're not my boss, so if I say something that triggers you, they don't care. I really don't care. No one cares. You can scroll along, but I hope you stay. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe, maybe we can agree to disagree. But I do appreciate being able to use the studio. It is a great facility, and there's some great people who do some great things at the PAC. So I really do appreciate them. Before we jump into our news stories, I do want to also encourage you to go to blacktnews.com and share different articles that I have written. Please check out the store. Of course, we got the GOAT hoodies. We do have them in different colors. We got these cool Trump shirts. We got the Defeat Joe Biden Denounce White Supremacy shirt with a list of his atrocities on the back. I do also have other shirts like You Are Not That Special. Got those in mugs. Got some Frederick Douglass stuff. Got stuff with the black T logo on it. This shirt that Facebook didn't want to run an ad for, My Money, My Business. You can pick that up. And I got that because of the abortion debate. I'm sick of people saying it's my body, my choice, when it's really another body involved, but you want taxpayer dollars involved. So that's like asking everyone's opinion. So that's why I made that shirt. So you should pick it up, especially since Facebook doesn't want you to have it. We also have the pumpkin spice season stuff with a cute little chibi Trump that I drew myself, so you should pick that up. And I also have that in shirts. Those are unisex, so fellas, you don't have to be too intimidated that those are female models if you really want to show off your pumpkin spice. So pick those up today at blacktnews.com. It's another way that you can support. And if you don't want the merchandise, I will just take the money. Go to blacktnews.com/donate. So let's jump into things. You guys know I like to start off with a funny. And people have been talking about Superman a lot lately. I've talked about it in the past couple episodes because they have his son, Jonathan Kent, who's come out as bisexual, dating a pink-haired hacktivist. It's just so not original, by the way. A pink-haired hacktivist. It's there. Like I said, it's. I'm not talking about it because it's so far-fetched that someone could have a child who is gay, but they're fighting the climate change and speaking about the refugees. It's just so far left, and now he's dating a pink-haired hacktivist. Oh gosh. It's just so obvious. It's just a little too on the nose, don't you think? So, anyway, here we have this that the Babylon Bee decided to put out. Babylon Bee is a parody newspaper site. So they do satire. Superman criticized as unrealistic for portraying a journalist as heroic. That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. And there's been so many journalists, especially in the Trump era, who just believed that they were heroes, that they were protecting, they were the ones, having the safeguards of our democracy. Washington Post had that saying, democracy dies in darkness. And the fact checkers were just like going 100 miles per hour. But then when Biden became elected, then they're like, we can kind of take a break because he doesn't lie as much. When Biden is like the most prolific liar probably in politics, especially as of recent politics. But I mean, can you even say recent? I mean, he's just been around forever. Longer than I've been alive. Most of you've been alive, most of my viewers and so on. So it's just hilarious because some of these journalists, they're just professional liars. There are some people who really take their craft seriously, and those people are usually ostracized and bullied by people who have an agenda to push. So I just thought the Babylon Bee did another solid lead. So I just wanted to say thank you to them and show this. It's really great, especially, since we have Superman in the news so much. Yesterday we talked about Dean Cain's comments regarding the gay Superman story, which his opinion was it's not new because you have a lot of people who've come out. We have had a lot of gay characters now. Maybe if this was 20 years ago, but it's not 20 years ago. It's 2021. It's not brave. It's not stunning. It would be brave to tackle maybe the reasons why these people are refugees. It would be, brave to go save the gays who were thrown off rooftops in Iran, which Iran was upset that, like the nation of Iran was upset at Dean Cain, Superman from Lois and Clark. So, which I did mention yesterday that I have met Dean Cain at Comic-Con, which, by the way, I will be there tomorrow. I will still have a show that will be airing. Actually, if you're unaware, this is not live right now. I have a lot of preparations sort of get prepared for this weekend. If you will be at Motor City Comic Con, I will have a booth there. I think my booth in Artist Alley is like located like H15 or H16. Me and my sister are next to each other. It's one or the other. So you guys can come and check out the stuff that I have, check out the stuff that she has. I write books. And here's some of the ones that I write. So these are like for my youngest audience that I have, Super Kid 2. It's actually based off of the crazy stories about my dad when he was a little boy. And he believed he was turning into Superboy because he was stronger than most kids in his class. So he just had a really overactive imagination. So I took some of those stories and I crafted them into these different characters. So they don't actually have superpowers. Felix, the main character who's Super Kid, actually believes he has superpowers. And so he becomes Super Kid. And so Kiara, she has a huge crush on him. She's way smarter than a kid her age ought to be. And so she just goes along with it and plays into his fantasy. And so she becomes Princess Lady Diva. And so they train this other kid named Stickman. So my dad actually did make a Stickman for Halloween and like fought off some bullies and like defended his candy and stuff. So anyway, so he thinks it's all real. So they train him. So he's kind of like the Batman of their pretend little superhero team. And in the second one, there's a big bully that they have to deal with named Frostbite. Well, that's not his name. That's the villain name that they gave this kid. And Felix really has to learn, what do you do when you're faced with an impossible obstacle? Are you going to just stand your ground? Or are you going to like buckle like everyone else does? So I have good authority. It is on good authority. I've been told by children who've read it that it is epic. And I do have kids pressuring me like, when's the third one coming out? And you don't know pressure until you have children asking when's the next book coming out. So I'm always working on these things. Obviously, I work on a lot of things at one time. But you should pick up Super Kid for you, your family. Christmas is coming up. So anyway, I'm going to be at Motor City Comic Con. And if you are going to be there, please make sure that you find me and still watch the show. I'll be signing as the show is going on. So please see me there. But I just want to let you guys know what I was doing. So let's jump to the very first crazy journalist suck. Flat out suck. So some time ago, we talked about this on the show. On Joy Reid's show. Don't we just love Joy Reid on this program? Don't we love her? With the love of Jesus, yes, we do. With the love of Jesus. But that's about like, I'll pray for her, we'll put it that way. That's where it extends. So on her show, she had Kimberly Crenshaw some time ago to defend critical race theory. And so she's like, I don't want to ask you stupid questions because I don't want you to think I'm stupid. But it's not a Marxist ideology, is it? It's not in schools and so on. So, mind you, I just want you to know that Kimberly Crenshaw, who she was one of the people who started like critical race theory. And so she is an authority on this, pretty much an authority on it. And that's why she like trotted her out. There are plenty of people who teach it and are offsets of it. Like people are trying to disavow Robin DiAngelo, who did like white fragility. Those stuffs are offsets of it. But Kimberly Crenshaw is like one of the people who like started it. She also coined like intersectionality. So she just gave us a lot of great stuff, right? So she came on the show and she never denounced the connection to Marxism and critical race theory. Now, if I was a person who thought like Marxism was just absolutely awful and there was something that I coined that people was associating it with, do you know what I would do? I would deny the connection with those things. And do you know why they cannot deny those connections with those things? Because it's undeniable that they're connected. And I keep saying this, you can literally find out a tie between them within like 5 minutes of research. 5 minutes of Googling, you can absolutely find that out. So there's really no denying it. And she never took the time to deny that on Joy Reid's show. Even though Joy Reid tried to set her up, like, not set her up in a bad way, just like get it out of the ballpark. Psh, like, these are what the Republican activists are saying. This is what they're scared of. It's not a Marxist thing. And she just never denied that. So she did explain what it was. So I'm going to play a little clip of that interview because there's some other stuff that's come out and has come out before. And we've talked about how, yes, it is in schools, but they're gaslighting. They're totally gaslighting here. And I have some like evidence of, obviously they were gaslighting here and they knew that.
So is critical race theory, is there a K through 12 curriculum that right now is being taught? I'm sorry, I know it's a dumb question, but is there a K through 12 curriculum on critical race theory that's being taught in schools around this country?
Well, look, Joy, if it was news to most Americans that critical race theory was in K through 12, it was news to me too. I'm one of the co-authors of one of the few books on critical race theory. I think I would know if we were being taught in K through 12. I mean, basically, critical race theory, classic critical race theory is a law school course, and it's really, not taught as widely as I would hope it would. Yeah. But here's the deal. This is not about whether anything called critical race theory is in K through 12. What they're calling critical race theory doesn't exist anyway. It is a backlash effort to reverse the racial reckoning unlike any we've seen in our lifetime. And as you pointed out at the beginning, they can't say, we're for racism. They can't say Derek Chauvin should have killed George Floyd with his hand in his pocket, looking like he was completely without a care in the world. They couldn't say that. So they looked around and found a strange sounding theory that they could put all of the grievances and resentments in and mobilize people around this boogeyman. And if our side can't really understand what's going on, it's going to work. It's worked in the past. It worked to end Reconstruction, and it can work to end this reckoning too.
So, she asks, is there a curriculum? And I've written an article about this. I've told you guys about this, that they have a particular way of going about it. They are not going to teach you point by point technical things that they would teach kids in your elementary, middle school, high school that they would teach specifically in law school. But is there like a dumbing sort of, and I hate to kind of use the word dumbing down, but like a watered down version of critical race theory? The insights, as they call it, yeah. And so there's been other documents that I've shown you guys that have included Kimberly Crenshaw at different events where they've been teaching critical race theory insights. So there was this. But there's other things that have recently come out with her, with different policy forums. So this is something that she's been involved in. Hashtag Truth Be Told messaging guide. And so she was one of the people a part of this. And so on here they have, is critical race theory currently being taught in K through 12 schools? Answer, critical race theory originated in law schools, but over time, professional educators and activists in a host of settings, K through 12 teachers, DIE advocates, racial justice and democracy advocates, among others, applied CRT to help recognize and eliminate systemic racism. So these activists, all of them applied CRT to help recognize and eliminate systemic racism. And that's a good thing, they said, because we must support our teachers' freedom to teach the truth about our accurate history. So that's pretty much an admission, right? That's an admission. Are they teaching point by point things? No. So CNN tried to debunk teachers teaching critical race theory, and they brought a teacher on, and I've played this video before. I have a whole entire reaction video to it. So if you haven't seen that video in its entirety, I recommend that you go on YouTube and that you watch it. At least my reaction to it, so you don't have to watch straight Breonna Keller. I'm not fond of her. But she said, critical race theory, it is a worldview, it is a lens. And so let me just ask you, if you're wearing glasses and it's not the right prescription, what's going to happen? You won't be able to see too clearly. And even if it's kind of right, like over time, it can like give you a headache and other stuff like that. Like you need to have the correct sort of lens. If it's skewed, it can skew your perception of things. And so having this worldview and this lens, people who defend it are normally people who don't know anything about it, or people who are doing it for political reasons, like a lot of these journalists are. And because they do know better. There's some Democrat activists, and we've talked about this, and I wrote an article about this when I went to the Democrat Party picnic. They didn't know anything about it, but they were defending it because that's, I don't know, their marching orders or whatever. And they know Republicans don't like it, so they have to protect it, essentially, even though it's a really bad ideology. So there's people who push it for political reasons, there's people who push it and don't know anything about it, and there's people who are pushing it because they have already accepted the worldview of it. And there's people who are straight up Marxist who understand what they're doing and understand the power behind this particular movement. So they do teach the insights, they do apply it to the schools. So anyway, this person that CNN brought on said, can it influence teachers? Yes. And after she said yes, you would think she would say, but we're professionals. No, she doesn't say that. She said, but that's a good thing. And this said, it's a good thing that these things are being applied. They think it's a good thing because they've bought into the worldview already. They've already bought into the worldview. So it's really unfortunate, but obviously they're gaslighting because they know that it's in schools. It's not in the way that people would learn in college, sure, but people are learning a watered down version, and it is also in your TV shows, your kids' TV shows. We talked about the TV show Arthur the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, how could this racism happen to this black person? I don't know, because aren't you all bunnies and bears and monkeys? I don't know what you all are, but rats and so on. But I've never seen a black person on your show. So that's new. Did you make them just for the racism? That's interesting. Really interesting. So they're really, really pushing it to make this world so hyper-racialized that that's all we focus on, and that's how they can move public policy. The abortion debate, I've started to see that people will say that pro-life people are white supremacists or steeped in white supremacy, which is crazy because you know the history that is in eugenics, people with population control and so on. But their reasoning is that there were some white people some years ago that were like, oh my gosh, look at the trends. We're going to be the minority if we keep this going. We got to stop killing our babies. And even if I granted you that premise, obviously that's not why I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life because I believe, it's science. It's just science. It's biology that the life starts at conception. And the most consistent application of if you want to apply those rights, because if you do it by viability or all these other kind of different ways that people argue about, you're going to find some kind of inconsistency. So the best consistent way is to say that it happens when the life begins at conception. And so if the child has a right to life, then you just don't have a right to kill it. And you could say, well, what about the woman's body? Granted that the fetus does, it changes a woman's body dramatically, yeah, when she has a baby. But the woman, for the same reasons that they think the woman should be able to supersede the child, is for the same reasons why it shouldn't, in my opinion, because you had free will, you were responsible, you could have been responsible before, and obviously not all pregnancies may happen because of consensual sex, but most abortions happen because of consensual sex. So I'm not gonna base every single policy on like the super minimal, tiny, unlikely statistic that they go to, and it still doesn't erase that the child is a child and it's alive and it's a life. We can't punish people just because of the sins of their father. So anyway, let's grant the premise that you're correct. And there are some white people who said, oh, we don't want to be the minority, so we got to stop aborting our children. Which is also crazy because like the black population has been like steady, and there's an abnormally high number of black people who abort their children, percentage wise. So if white people figure that out, how come black people haven't figured that out, and Hispanic people, and everyone else was having abortions? Why aren't they saying, you know what, these white people, they're really pushing to be pro-life because they realize it's a bad thing to kill their own community? So how come everyone else can't wake up and do that? It's absurd. It's crazy. So I'm like, I think we're at the point in America where people can just like, hey, there's a cliff over there. The white supremacists don't want you to go over that cliff. Oh yeah? Well, let me just go fall off the cliff right now. Like, can you just think critically and rationally for yourself without being driven by an emotional racial narrative for just 5 minutes? For just 5 minutes to realize, hey, that would be really dumb. Really, really dumb. So they know how they can use race to really drive everything. So that's why they love critical race theory. That's why they like to apply it all these kind of different ways. Because the end game is to push a Marxist ideology, a Marxist society, and they know that they can do that with race. I've talked about a book called Color, Communism, and Common Sense, and Manning Johnson wrote it, and he used to be a communist, and he ended up becoming an informant for the U.S. government, and he talked about how people would use legitimate grievances with race, the communists would, to convert people to communism. But at the end of the day, no matter what sort of grievances or solutions there could be to your community, you could never allow anything like that, any devotion to your community, to supersede the goals of communism. And then they put procedures in place to destroy you in case you wanted to flip. So it's a pretty remarkable book, and it's a pretty remarkable thing that they're doing to this nation. And they were gaslighting when they did that. And the last thing that she said, the tail end of the interview that she was talking about was she accused people of only being against critical race theory because that's their way of lashing out against these, I don't know, these big moves for racial justice. And they're like, well, they can't really, then they're really racist. They can't say, oh yeah, cheer on Derek Chauvin for being on George Floyd's neck. So they can't do that. So they want to go after critical race theory. In what sort of world does it sound like a rational thing, like a real thing? You've made a caricature out of your enemy, out of your opponent. So if you've done that, how can you even have a real legitimate conversation? These aren't people who want to solve things. They want to control every institution, and they want to tear it down and remake the world, but they're not going to be able to build anything substantial. It's just going to be rubble on top of rubble. Because that's not how you deal with people when you're having a real conversation. Like, we have to define our terms. We have to assume that we can learn from the person we're talking to. We have to assume that they're coming from a good place. These people don't even want to assume that you're coming from a good place. Like when you're a concerned parent, and if you're a black parent and you're saying, hey, I don't want my child to be taught that they are less than, that they're going to have a harder time to succeed than their white counterparts. I don't want them to have that crutch, that burden on their life. And I would really like if we don't teach that stuff. Then you're an uppity Negro. If you're a white person and you're like, my family just immigrated over here, like just a generation or two ago. I don't want them to be taught that they're racist and then they're guilty for the sin of slavery and all these other institutions because of the color of their skin. And I don't want them to be bullied. Well, you're just a bigot and someone who's not an anti-racist, and you're standing up for white supremacy. So these people are unserious people. Unfortunately, a lot of people take them serious. And even though it's just so absurd, but they'll push it anyway. They will push it anyway. So question number 4, they did talk about the right-wing media. I do have that cut off in the document. I'll retweet this on Twitter. But this was a good find by the folks who usually have, like Chris Ruffalo and other people usually have this sort of stuff that they tweet out from these critical race theory people. But basically, they're saying people are against critical race theory because they're racist and they want to stop people from voting and a bunch of other garbage. And it's just so easy to vote today. It has been for a while. But they want to make it seem like they're out to get everyone. And if you disagree with their indoctrination, then you're just part of the evil that they're preaching against. They just want you to shut up. Like, that was the theme of our show yesterday, about you have to be dangerous, you have to be brave, your parents have to get up and you have to do something because the whole world is coming against you because these people want your kids. So once someone told me that I love your show, I love what you do, because, you know, if I said the stuff that you say, they would call me a racist. And I said, well, they call me a coon. They call me an Uncle Tom. So, and they just kind of stared awkwardly at me. I'm just like, you have to stay in the fight too. I'm already a minority. So at least, and I appreciate you like giving me my kudos, and I appreciate people who donate. I appreciate people who appreciate what I do. And I want you to keep supporting. Absolutely. Please go to blacktnews.com/donate. But I need you to stand up and fight against this nonsense too. We all have to stand up together against it. It's absolutely necessary. So let's go on. Let's go on with another pretty crazy thing. So you guys know that some time ago Joe Rogan caught COVID. So he's a pretty healthy guy, and he got over it like within a day. He had a doctor prescribe him ivermectin, and they were calling it a horse dewormer. So he had CNN's like a medical person on his show the other day, and just really grilled them, and it's glorious. So I'm going to play that for you.
Horse dewormer's not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing. That's a lie that they're conscious of. This is not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Well, the FDA put this thing out. You saw that. Did you see that thing that the FDA put out?
What did the FDA put out?
It was a tweet, and it was snarky. I admit it. They said, "You are not a horse. You are not a cow. Stop taking this stuff," or something like that.
Why would you say that when you're talking about a drug that's been given out to billions and billions of people, a drug that was responsible for one of the inventors of it making the
Nobel Prize.
winning the Nobel Prize in 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
a drug that has been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. You know that, right? Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, motherfucker. This is ridiculous. It's just a lie.
I don't think anyone is.
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying? You know that they know that I took medicine. Like, here it is. This is ivermectin.
You got
this
it with
is right
you.
here. Somebody gave it to me.
All right, hang on. The thing is, we're like going so fast. Like I feel like I'm missing.
Do you think that's a problem that your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude,
I mean, what did they say?
They lied
What did
and
they
said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer. First of all, it was prescribed to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
they
with
shouldn't have said
a
it was
bunch
horse.
of other
if
medications.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very effective medication for parasitic disease, and as you say, it's probably, I think what, 250 million people have taken it around the world.
More,
I get that.
Way more.
So
way more. Billions of people have taken it.
Can I just come back to the one I want to talk about? Two
No.
things on the ledger.
You have, before we get to that, does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
You didn't ask? You didn't think that was you're the medical guy over there.
I didn't ask. I should have asked before coming on your podcast.
But they did it with such glee.
No,
yes,
Joe.
they did. I watched.
So kudos to Joe. When all this kind of started happening, like, he did joke, like, do I need to sue CNN now? Because they were saying all kinds of crazy stuff. They were saying that he was taking horse dewormer. As a matter of fact, there was like a article that was going around circulating where they were claiming that a lot of people were taking it, and the ER was like flooded up with people, and that wasn't true either, really. And there was like somebody who was on the right wing who like researched it and found out that the story was really, really overblown. So they were really dedicated to this narrative, and he's just saying to Sanjay, like, hey, like, does it bother you that they lied? He's like, well, they shouldn't have said. Well, they lied gleefully, happily. They lied on me, like they knew they were lying, and so on. So here's a clip of Acosta. Don't we love Acosta with Fauci during that time where they did mention Joe Rogan.
You've had to debunk misinformation coming from some high places throughout this pandemic. Some of the latest Fox's Tucker Carlson, he's been defending counterfeit vaccine cards. Let's just watch a little bit of that.
Buying a fake vaccination card is an act of desperation by decent, law-abiding Americans who have been forced into a corner by tyrants. You know what's a serious crime? Forcing Americans to take drugs they don't need or want. That's a very serious crime. And let's hope in the end someone is punished for it severely.
And the podcast host, Joe Rogan, he came down with COVID. He says he's been taking the livestock dewormer ivermectin, as well as other other treatments that people talk about on the internet and so on. Doesn't have any effect on COVID, obviously. Did you ever expect that you would have, I guess, to compete with the likes of Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, Dr. Fauci? And are their voices more powerful and, I guess, more widespread than people like yourself, other public health experts who are out there? And isn't that part of the problem?
Well, Jim, disinformation and misinformation is really a very serious issue when it comes to a public health issue like COVID-19, in which it is essential to get correct information out, both for people who are infected and who do need proper medication and proper care, to foster things that are unproven right from the beginning has always been a problem. The best way to counter disinformation and misinformation is to try as best as we all can to get the proper and correct information out. But one of the enemies of public health is disinformation, and unfortunately, we do see that in some quarters.
So if Sanjay can admit that it was bad for them, they shouldn't have did that. I guess we'll wait breathlessly for Jim Acosta to come out and say, I'm a dang fool, and I apologize. And they should have to apologize because they wanted. First of all, these people are jealous of Joe Rogan's reach. Let's just be frank. Let's just be honest. A lot of people are intimidated by Joe. There's people who think that he's like far right or on the right, and that's just not true. He enjoys having conversations with people. He has some like liberty-minded positions and stuff, but there's positions that he has that are left-leanings, like he's pro-choice, for example. Actually, some people lied about him being, maybe it was Cenk from the, or some people from Young Turks were saying he wasn't pro-choice the other day, and he's pro-choice, which it appears the reason to be you shouldn't tell a woman what to do her body, which I think is interesting when people mention that, because men obviously have to sign up for the draft. And if the child is born, they obviously have to pay child support and have certain responsibilities. So I don't know. That's just a talking point that a lot of people have just given into. But I think if you think about it, it just doesn't pass the sniff test. People just don't want to be uncomfortable, and they don't want to say, "Hey, you should have to be held accountable for your actions with that baby there." So anyway, he's pro-choice, and so he's very lax on like drugs. I don't know how deep it goes with, but there's things that he's like not on the right about, at least not as conservative, obviously, as I am. But people don't like that he's just like a free speech sort of advocate. Talk to anybody about anything. We can, you can come on his podcast and chill and have weed or whatnot and just have a good time with Joe. But if Joe says like, hey, I'm taking ivermectin. I think you should be healthy. I think you should take care of your body. They don't like stuff like that because they want control, and they don't like his reach, and they don't like that he is uncontrollable to them. They don't mind promoting people who will submit to their way of thinking, that will submit to their propaganda machine. But someone like Joe, who has a very far reach and just wants to have interesting conversations with people, they don't like that. Not at all. So when Joe Rogan took something that wasn't the vaccine and he survived, was only sick for like a day, like pretty much just a day, oh, they were mad. They were mad. And he had like IVs of less like different vitamins and stuff just going like straight into him and stuff. Like he had a game plan in case he got sick. And he was just sick about a day. And then he thinks that the only reason why he really got sick was because he was out late night and drinking and hungover or something like that. But he usually like takes better care of himself than that. So he had a game plan. Kudos to him. And he's got money to take care of himself. Not everyone has like the same sort of resources that Joe Rogan has. But man, they hate him. CNN should totally apologize. So horse dewormer, that framing was totally dishonest. Now I want to talk about this tech investor who they are really upset that he's supporting Ron DeSantis. They really hate Ron DeSantis. I'm still on the fence of whether Trump is going to run again, not as far as like supporting him or anything, but just like, I don't know if he'll do it. I don't know why you'd want to do it, honestly. You're home on your Mar-a-Lago, just chilling. You're not I guess people talk about it all the time, but it's not like how it was. But I don't know, he could come in. We've had a president elected after like not having a consecutive term before. And obviously people see how bad things with Joe Biden. His poll numbers are just atrocious with inflation and how he's handling the border, the economy, and so on. It's really, really interesting. But Ron DeSantis is obviously someone who could run for president and could, even if Trump decides to run, could primary Trump and perhaps take it. We shall see. But people really hate him. So this tech mogul was grilled and asked a leading question, which he handled just fabulously.
I do want to ask you about the fundraiser you're hosting for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who obviously is a very divisive figure, has made some choices that are questionable when it comes to public health. I know that you don't necessarily agree with all of them, but why do you support such a divisive candidate, especially given the global health crisis we are still facing?
Why is he inherently more divisive than, say, Gavin Newsom or someone on the other side of the spectrum? See, what I would argue is that words like polarizing and divisiveness, they assume a normative baseline in which everybody agrees. Everyone in the tech industry agrees because they all come from a certain information bubble. And anyone who deviates from that orthodoxy is perceived as divisive. I would argue that the country, there's a multiplicity of views, and you're not divisive just because you don't agree with the orthodoxy of Silicon Valley.
So, but why DeSantis over many of the other candidates who you could host fundraisers for? I mean, I know you're bullish on Florida, but DeSantis and Mayor Suarez, who was actually on the show earlier this hour, are on different ends of the spectrum.
I've donated to Suarez too. But I like both of them. I like Suarez because he's been extremely welcoming towards the tech ecosystem in Miami. I think that's a smart strategy. I don't get why the politicians in San Francisco don't do that. I mean, they're killing the golden goose. In terms of why I like DeSantis, he was the first governor to stop these insane lockdowns. And, he found the right policy on lockdowns, which was to stop them. And he did it despite an extremely hostile media. So I respect that. When somebody takes the right position on an issue, despite the hostility of the media, that's something I can really respect. That's why I support it.
So David Sachs, they're like, why are you supporting him? Because I like him. Because I like him. And like, he's so divisive. Well, you're assuming a baseline of politics that if you deviate from what you think that how people are supposed to think, and you say, hey, I just think a little differently, you're divisive. That's crazy. you can be on two opposite ends of the spectrum and not be a divisive person. A divisive person is like, oh, you don't agree with me, or you don't, oh, you think people should show IDs? That's racist. What? That's divisive. Joe Biden and people getting up saying like, hey, you won't wear a mask? Why do you want to kill Americans? That's divisive. That's divisive. Like, if you're going to sit and talk about data and policy and stuff like that, that's not divisive, even if you are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. But people like her asking leading questions like, why would you support such a divisive figure? He's not a divisive figure. He's just somebody you don't like. But why him and not other people? Because I like him. It should be that simple. And then you can go ahead and explain why. And obviously, you have a governor who looks at the data, who is able to make opinions whether people will bash him or not. If it's the right thing to do, they're going to stand by whatever is the right thing to do. And he's going to do the right thing for businesses. And if he's willing to do the right thing for business, and he's someone who invests in businesses, why wouldn't you want to work with a governor that's going to create a good environment? I don't understand like people who like who he ran against oh geez, he was a mayor, the black guy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But he was like talking about raising taxes, and like people don't go to Florida so they can have higher prices on different things. They want to go and they want to relax and they want to retire. Maybe you'll hear crazy stories about some alligators here and there, but you just mostly want to chill and just hang out and spend out the rest of your life in the sun and not have higher taxes. That's crazy. So a lot of people have been fleeing to Florida from all over the country, from and people leave states like California, which is, and I assume that that reporter there probably likes people who run California, but people are still running from California, and they settle in places like Texas, and they settle in places like Florida or wherever they can. And some of them are settling in like Tennessee and other areas. And even there's other southern like red states where people are concerned about people moving. Like there's people in Alabama who are concerned that they could be the next Georgia, where stuff will start to trend a certain way because people are leaving and they want other job opportunities and stuff, and they don't connect the dots that, hey, bad liberal policies is why I'm leaving, so let me just keep voting the same way for same crazy people. And then you have like a world order sort of, I don't know, arrangement and strategy to get these really left-leaning people elected all across the country. So there's a lot at work, a lot of things at play. But if you're just like a person who says, I want businesses to do good, I want the businesses I invest in to do good, I want to know they're not going to be locked down and shut down because of some whim of some governor, and I don't want them to lose their backbone and their spine because the media is running hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. I think there's a lot of reasons to like Ron DeSantis, and I've liked him for a lot of reasons. And you know what? When he said, he was asked by I think Tucker Carlson, like what's like a mistake that you made or something that you regret, and he's like, I regret locking down it all. I'm just like, man, that's my dude right there. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. So I like DeSantis for a lot of reasons. But I'm glad that this tech mogul stood his ground, and that's how we like what we like, and I can verify that. I can back that up. I have an explanation. I have a reason. Why do you like these non-divisive people who obviously resort to these divisive tactics and these extreme policies that make it unfriendly for business? Why do you like those people? Why do you stand by those people? I don't know a lot of people who can justify voting for Joe Biden, other than they didn't like Trump. But a lot of things reasons why people say they didn't like Trump are things that Joe Biden is just like 100 times more. 100 times more. The last thing I want to point out is Kamala Harris, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. these clips and bits from this NASA commercial that they put out some time ago, but it's just cringe. So I'm gonna play like 2 clips, and I'm sorry that you have to suffer through this, but you need to.
Very nice to meet you, Zoriel.
Nice to meet you, Emily.
Nice to meet you, Emily. Welcome.
Thank you
So
so much.
this is the residence of the vice president. So let's all stand up. Here we are.
Oh my God.
Hanging out together.
So there's she's like, oh hi. It's just a little cringe. Here's another.
I just love the idea of exploring the unknown. And then there's other things that we just haven't figured out or discovered yet. To think about so much that's out there that we still have to learn. Like, I love that. I love that. And so I'm very excited about the Space Council. We're going to learn so much as we increasingly, I think, are curious and interested in the potential for the discoveries and the work we can do in space. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about. But the other, you guys are going to see. You're going to literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes.
Oh my goodness.
With your own eyes, I'm telling you, it is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. So you know what's remarkable about her? Like, she has a daughter, correct, or a stepdaughter or something. And so I'm just like, you've been around children, right? Like before, like I know, I love the memes when she's like in a cop outfit and she's like arresting children because of the truancy laws and stuff and, that they had out there in California. If you haven't seen them, they're funny. I'll have to show one of those one day. But it was just so cringe. Just like, you're going to see it with your own eyes. I just love the fact that there's things we don't know. Okay. She's just so unnatural. It's amazing. But do you want to know what is amazing about this story? And if you don't know this, oh my gosh, prepare yourself. So those children were hired. Those children had to audition for that gig. So she's just there pretending like she's having a normal conversation with a couple of constituent children. And there's one thing, maybe you have to vet kids, right? Because you don't want the situation that Joe Biden had where you're just surrounded by a group of people wearing like pro-Trump stuff. And you're just relentlessly trolled. But people had to like audition for it. And it was a Canadian company called Sinking Ship. Sinking Ship booked these children. That is hilarious. I am not kidding you. So these kids had to like audition, like sending, like pre-questions or whatever, and how they would answer them and so on, and they were picked, and there was one of the kids like who were bragging like, yep, and I got the gig. So the White House is denying that they like were involved in like picking the kids and stuff, but it was a Canadian company that picked these kids for this video, and so I wonder why they didn't script her or anything. 'Cause she's just like, I just love that there's things out there we don't know. I just love not knowing things. It's just how I want to run my life and the presidency, and that's how I run the border crisis. By not going to the border and knowing what's going on and firing horses because they're racist. These people are so bad. They're so bad. They're so incompetent. Like, it's one thing that I know that they want to implement policies that I don't agree with, that are just bad, but it's another that they're just like blatantly incompetent in a lot of different ways. Her and Joe Biden. And it's just amazing how bad they are at their jobs. It's really amazing, especially since he's been involved for so long, especially since a lot of the staff that they have are rollovers from the Obama administration. And as bad as the Obama administration was, I just don't feel like they were deviants. And, but they weren't. It didn't seem like they were incompetent, They were doing like bad, evil stuff. Incompetent? Like, they never like let stuff just get all the way back up to Obama. Like, oh, IRS is singling out conservatives. Well, we're not letting that touch Obama. Like, they just, I don't know. They were just a lot more coordinated, I guess. But so that's what's really amazing is that they have, like, Jen Psaki was like from that past administration. So I'm just like, why are they just so bad at it all? It doesn't make any sense to me. Not a lick of sense. But anyway, that is the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the media trash talking. I really dislike them because so many people lie and so many people are so ridiculous. Like Jim Acosta and Joy Reid. Joy Reid is just like the worst. I enjoyed her beef with Nicki Minaj. You guys know oh my gosh, that was a fun week. That was a fun week. That was a fun week. So again, I will be at Comic-Con on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Motor City Comic-Con. So if you are in the area and you plan on going to Motor City Comic-Con and seeing all the guests that they have there, they have Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum there from the show Smallville. One of the young men from Stranger Things, that was on Netflix. I can't think of the actor's name, but he's the one who sang Never Ending Story. I kind of like was pitched this out to my sisters to see if like I should go for it, but thought about getting like a microphone that has like a little speaker on it and just like kind of like when they're kind of in the line, just like starting the song and seeing if he would sing along. And they're like, well, the worst thing that could happen is no one joins in. And that would be awkward. And the best thing that could happen is that he joins in and it's an epic moment. But some of them were like, don't do that. And other friends were like, no, you should totally do that. But I think I'm going to be far too busy probably at my table, hopefully anyway, to just kind of wander and do that anyway. And I don't have the microphone. I didn't buy it, so I don't think I'll execute that plan. But I will be at Motor City Comic Con in the Artist Alley selling several of my books. I did show you guys earlier my Super Kid book. I'm going to show you that again. It is, and I do my illustrations on my book covers and stuff myself. So I did draw that. So that is, like the youngest book that I have. Those are for middle grade, like chapter books though. Those aren't picture books. I am working on picture books. I've written several, but the art's not ready yet. But, that's Super Kid, story about a boy with an overactive imagination who believes he has superpowers, and they just do the best they can trying to save the world. So you should buy that for some loved ones that you have. I also have another series that, I have several different series, but I have a really, really cool historical fiction fantasy series. The Color of God's Eyes, and the second one is Song on the Devil's Lips, and there's more to come, but it takes place in the Civil War era, and Charlotte is a slave who discovers she has powers, and she uses it to obviously escape. That's kind of a spoiler alert, but it's like kind of obvious about the direction of things, how they would go. But it's really her journey from being a slave to like this revolutionary leader, this hero. And it's a really great story because at the same time, so she has powers. If you could imagine imagine Harriet Tubman sort of roots, or like you saw that movie, or if you saw like Roots, or just think about something along that age, but if you add like X-Men powers to it, that's pretty much what you're going to get. And so there's a group of people who believe that her kind are they're zealots, and they believe that people like her shouldn't exist. So at the same time that she's fighting those people, and she's taking a stand to really trying to help humanity, but at the same time she's like, these people also want to keep me enslaved. So that's kind of like where the second book is, kind of her dealing with how do I rectify that? How do I cope with this knowledge that humanity is worth saving, but at the same time not very good? So they have some really powerful themes, and historical books are always fun. And so those are I have a lot of books that I really, really love. Those are my babies. So you should check that out. And check out the Super Kid. I got Slay Your Fear. I wrote that during the pandemic because people had lost their minds. So that's my only like nonfiction book that I have right now. I did let Eric, the head of the pack, before I started recording, I told him about a political book that I'm working on, and I don't want to really give you guys too much of a spoiler alert on it, but the title is fantastic and the theme is fantastic. And hopefully they'll come out sooner rather than later. And the last thing I want to do, besides encouraging you, go to blacktnews.com to check out different content that I have. to share those articles, to look at the different merchandise that I have on the store. And if you want to donate, go to blacktnews.com/donate. I do want to play a book trailer that I made for one of my book series. And you guys can see all of this at Ninja Dust Publishing. That's my website for my books, if you want to get any of that stuff. But I do want to play this book trailer, and then I'm going to close out my show. But I worked really hard on the book trailer, and it is a really good book. If you're into, like, a lot of people are into Korean dramas, especially right now because Squid Games has taken the world by storm on Netflix. But if you like anime and all that kind of other stuff, I think you would really enjoy The Empress. It is a sequel to The Queen. You don't have to necessarily read them in order, but you should. But it's a really good book. So here is a book trailer that I cut for it some time ago.
When I was young, I learned the price of being born with a destiny. My mother raised 10 extraordinary daughters. But to be extraordinary requires particular sacrifices. Only one heir can inherit her great and terrible power. And my mother's favor is a burden on my life. Can I be the empress of my own heart, my own destiny, to live and love with the freedom of an ordinary woman? If I'm not strong enough to stop the upcoming battle, I have to prove I'm strong enough to survive it. Even monsters have gods, nightmares, and champions. I have the opportunity to be all three. My body has been bruised, busted, broken, and cut wide open. I paid for every pound of flesh, for every inch of my soul. I deserved every speck of my existence, and no one could tell me differently. Living my life on my terms is all the honor I need. If I can't first honor myself, what does your honor matter? I am an empress, and I bow to no one.
Yeah, so that's the trailer for The Empress. So one of the many books that I have 14 books that are published right now, and I have 30 that's written. I have a board at my house that just has, like, so many book ideas that I'm trying to pump out, to push out. And it is a little hard with doing black tea and at the same time, but like, my time is definitely full. But the more you guys are willing to help me get there a little further faster, I appreciate. So please do consider going to blacktnews.com/donate and helping with Black Tea News, and get some help here so we can keep pumping out those books, because I love those books. They are really good. So anyway, if you are at Motor City Comic Con, please make sure that you find me in Artist Alley, say hello, and purchase a book. And get some stuff from my sister too, because she's really talented as well. Thank you guys so much for joining today, and I'll see you next time.